My name is Phil Rees. I've spent much of my career meeting men and women called terrorists in the West. It used to be said that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. But after 9/11, that seemed to change.
Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists.
Western politicians list dozens of terrorist organizations. I'll be breaking bread with those labeled terrorists by the West and ask, when does a man have the right to fight without being called a terrorist? An island shattered by a quarter of a century of conflict. I travel to the front line of what the Sri Lankan government calls its war on terror.
There. Terrorism, whether in Sri Lanka or in Washington or in London or somewhere else, is terrorism.
The president says he's fighting a just war against the world's most brutal terrorist organization, the Tamil Tigers. They say they are fighting for the freedom of Sri Lanka's Tamils and that the real source of the terror is the state itself.
The journalists can't speak, they can't write, the parliamentarians can't open their mouth, anybody can arrest at any time. So what sort of situation we are having when we are talking about terrorism? There's a pure state terrorism going on.
I discover how the use and abuse of the word terrorism is influencing an ethnic conflict that has left at least 70,000 dead. I've come to an event over 8,000 kilometers from Sri Lanka in London. Tamils living in Britain have gathered to celebrate the sacrifice of men and women they regard as national heroes, fighters from the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, or LTTE, who have lost their lives in battle. The LTTE is popularly known as the Tamil Tigers. They believe they must fight for a separate Tamil homeland within the island of Sri Lanka. The Tamils are mostly Hindu and make up about 15% of the population of Sri Lanka. Many claim they are the victims of discrimination and say the government tries to curb their language and culture. Communal tensions exploded in 1983. Nearly 1,000 Tamils were murdered and tens of thousands lost their homes. The riots were triggered by the killing of 13 Sri Lankan soldiers by the recently formed Tamil Tigers. While most in this hall support the LTTE, it is illegal to admit that in Britain. They are not allowed to donate money, and British law requires that the faces of dead guerrillas are blacked out. Why? Because the Tamil Tigers are listed as a terrorist organization in more than 20 countries, including the UK.
All of a sudden, now without any sort of clarity, they branded all the organization, whoever they are fighting for freedom or whatever it may be, they branded they are terrorists.
The Sri Lankan government has adopted the same language to describe its conflict with the Tamil Tigers that the West has used since 9/11 for its war on terror. George Bush said in 2001, you're either with us or with the terrorists. Do you think that's a sentiment that can be applied to the people of Sri Lanka?
It applies to Sri Lanka too. I mean, it can't be applied to one country and not applying to the other country.
I'm going back to Sri Lanka to find out how the West's war on terror is affecting this ethnic conflict, one that I have reported on for many years. The main ethnic group in Sri Lanka are the Sinhalese. They are mostly Buddhist and make up more than 70% of the population. After independence from British rule, the Sinhalese gave a greater emphasis to their culture. Many are also suspicious of the links that Sri Lanka's Tamils have with a large Tamil population in nearby India. There have been thousands of civilian deaths from bombs planted by the Tamil Tigers. They were the first modern insurgency to use suicide bombers. Their strikes have been so effective that their methods have been copied by militants elsewhere. The Tigers want an independent state called Tamil Eelam in districts where Tamils have traditional roots. For a generation, they've controlled territory in these areas, but recent defeats have driven them into the jungles around Mullaitivu. I went to Mannar, a Tamil-dominated province, to discover what's happened on the battlefield. The government has spent billions of dollars to strengthen its army in order to crush the Tigers and reclaim territory. I joined one of their units as it moved north. Well, it's early in the morning now and we're heading up to the front line. We have to be in this armoured vehicle because the army isn't sure that there haven't been mines laid overnight, or indeed there aren't still snipers hiding in the trees. From early 2008, the Tigers have been losing ground rapidly. We passed rows of empty trenches, defensive positions that the Tigers had abandoned. Most of the buildings had been damaged by shelling. In the past, I have crossed the no-man's land that separates the two sides. But since this assault began, it has been impossible. They've got their gun positions in that, have they?
Beyond that.
Fire!
Yeah.
There. Seemed like a direct hit.
Yeah.
Troops led by Colonel Suminder Jayasundara captured a Tiger naval base in a town that had been in rebel hands for a generation.
We stepped into this area after, 18 years of...
18 years of control with them, yeah.
We felt like, we have won the war.
The colonel took me to a graveyard for LTT fighters. And this cemetery looks huge. I mean, there are thousands here, aren't there? And they're all soldiers. Are they all Tigers, or indeed terrorists, of course?
Yes, all terrorists.
As you say, all terrorists who died in action.
Yes.
This wasn't just a Tamil Tiger military base. It's a town with houses and a school. But there was no one to be seen. All the people have gone. I mean, the people who lived here, they've...
Those people have been, taken forcibly by the LTT.
So when they retreat, you mean?
Yes.
They take the population with them.
Yeah, these posters have been put up in order to indoctrinate the school children. And this is to brainwash them in order to get them into their side.
Yeah, yeah. The suggestion over there, of course, that Tamils in Sri Lanka live behind barbed wire, isn't it?
It's not really. This is, something that they want to, tell the world that, people are behind the barbed wires. But in reality, it is not so.
The Tigers say the Tamil population is fleeing in fear from the army. Since the recent fighting began, hundreds of thousands of Tamils have retreated alongside the fighters into areas that are cut off from the outside world. I was taken to a camp that the army says provides shelter for 500 Tamils. Colonel Suminder told me that these refugees are not prisoners, but have fled from areas controlled by the Tamil Tigers. This woman has been at the camp for months and has no idea when she'll be able to leave. As she fled the battlefield, she was separated from her husband.